Welcome to The Worthy Woman, a podcast for the intuitive, ambitious woman who's ready to regulate her nervous system, reconnect with her body, and rise to the next level of success, health, and purpose. I'm your host, Jo, manual osteopath, holistic coach, and nervous system guide, here to walk with you as you heal from the inside out and create a life and a business that actually feels good. On this podcast, we explore the connection between your body, emotions, subconscious patterns, and your ability to lead, create, and live from your worth. Let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to The Worthy Woman, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Johanna, and today we are talking about the fight response, nervous system response, and how it's showing up in your business and why you can't seem to relax in your business, in your life, and kind of almost feel like this kind of craziness when it comes to you and your business. So if you have ever felt like you just can't slow down, you have to keep pushing, this episode is going to be for you. Our nervous system, if you've been following along with me, you've heard me say this a ton, but our nervous system really is kind of in the driver's seat, and it affects and plays into our emotional being, our physical being, our spiritual nature or state, mental state, right? And we're going to talk about how specifically this type of response, which you may or may not have, how this shows up specifically in women running businesses. I think as women, we've kind of been taught to run our businesses like men. And even really, we've been taught to run our businesses a certain way that's very outdated, old school kind of way to do it, especially with like the advancements of technology and how we can be very automated and things like that. I think we can really start to free up our time as just human beings, let alone women. But for women especially, we're not supposed to be in this crazy hustle and bustle all the time. Obviously, we're all going to have different capacities and all different thresholds for what feels good and what feels in alignment with us. But again, we all shouldn't be running business the exact same way, right? And a huge piece of whether business is in alignment with you or things are in alignment with you is how you're able to respond to the situation, respond to your business, and how you feel in your business, right? So the fight mode specifically is connected to the it's connected to the sympathetic nervous system. So essentially it's a stress response, and the sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. So maybe some of you have kind of heard of that before. And like I said, it does affect all aspects of us. So when we're in fight or flight, essentially the body is sensing danger. So whether that's real or it's just a familiar pattern, and with that you feel like I have to now go into action. So the easiest way to explain this is when we look at animals, and when they feel like they're under threat or they're under attack, they don't feel safe, they gotta run, right? They gotta go run, hide, do something, right? Typically it's running or fighting to defend themselves, to stay alive, basically. And you can have these responses in your business. What we don't realize sometimes is that our body, our physiology doesn't understand the difference of us running from a bear or posting on social media, right? So we can go into these patterns where we feel unsafe or we don't feel safe in our body. And you hear people talk about this a lot in the nervous system, like world, right? Is like safety, and we have to feel safe in our body. What that essentially means is it has to feel not like a threat. We don't want to have this big, crazy stress response that prevents us from, doing the thing or following through, or actually ends up having us push what we want away, right? So essentially in fight mode, you are in this like, let me take action, let me fight, let me basically defend myself, but through attacking this other thing, right? And so in business, you might feel like really anxious around different aspects of your business. You may also feel very like wired and just kind of buzzy. Especially like when it comes to sleeping, like you might have a really hard time sleeping if you're in this stress response a lot, or you could kind of ebb and flow out of this stress response. Irritated, overwhelmed, restless, on edge, right? These are all signs that you're kind of in this space. And you might actually notice that, you know, maybe work and business feels stressful, but it's more like when you go home and you're with your kids, or you go home and you're with your partner, and if you're not turning that off and you're not able to rest and relax, and you're in this state chronically, which is essentially all the time, then you're going to start to see your nervous system state from your business bleed into all these other areas of your life. So when you're in fight mode in your business, you're overworking, you're micromanaging, whether it's people, the situation, yourself, whatever. And this is really an opportunity where you're trying to stay in control. Like this is where you're trying to grasp onto things, because when you're in control, you feel safer, right? If you think of like when we're in dangerous situations, we're not in control, right? And it feels very overwhelming. And again, obviously unsafe. So we try to stay in control when we're in this mode, which is just a protective mechanism. Again, you might also be snapping kind of at others, whether that's in your business or even outside of your business, or become really impatient, especially when things are not in alignment, not going well, you know, not moving in maybe the direction you want, or there's a bit of a struggle. And you might also always feel like you have to be like on, right? And it's like that feeling of like, you feel like you can't step away. You feel like you can't take a break because I have to keep going. I have to, because there's no other option. That's a stress response. Also, possibly your business might not be in alignment with you, of how it's maybe structured or set up. And we have to get away from this like achieving safety to like feel worthy, right? Like, or even just be in this achieving type of state to feel worthy, to feel safe. So it's really basically we want to work on detaching ourselves from the success of our business. Now, obviously, we all want to be successful. We all want to have good things, do big things. But again, if that doesn't work, it doesn't mean that I'm any less than. And so those are kind of the subconscious blocks that a lot of us have to kind of work through. So there's kind of this urgency, this pressure, this control, right? So in fight mode, some of the more physical symptoms of things, I mean, obviously can show up in a lot of different ways, but when we're in that sympathetic, that fight or flight, I want you to go back to like the animal analogy, right? Of like fighting your threat, your danger, right? So your heart rate's going to be elevated or pounding, right? You're going to be breathing really shallow and very quickly. Think of like exercising too. Your jaw's clenched, your fists are tight, you might feel a lot of heat, or you get sweaty, right? And in your thoughts, there's this thinking of like, well, I have to fix this, or I'm not doing enough, or why can't this person just see that I'm right? So there's kind of this battle, this internal battle, and possibly battle with other people that we are starting to have in our business, and again, just like in our life, right? And so all of these different things, again, there's mental, physical, emotional ways that this stress response can show up in our business. And again, it might not even maybe look like yelling. It could just be looking like you're overperforming, you're micromanaging, constantly fixing things, or someone messes up and you fix it, and you're always the one having to, pick up the pieces, so to speak, right? So it can show up in a lot of different ways. Now, I think, and I had touched on this, briefly a few moments ago, but with women, this really shows up for us because there's this societal piece that our mothers have learned, our grandmothers learned, right? That we have to prove ourselves and our worth by doing things. And I think you see it in the world, like so many people are just like, I just want to be, Like, I just want to enjoy my life. I don't want to have to be constantly working and doing and like pushing and proving and constantly be going all the time, right? Some people, again, like I'm definitely a person who needs a lot more chill in my life. I enjoy the fun things, but I need a lot of recovery time. Other people don't need as long of a recovery time, right? So we have to know ourselves, and that's a big piece as well of like, again, making a business that suits you and knowing what you need and what you want out of your business. And then therefore you can set it up the way that it supports you the most, right? We're also taught different like trauma patterns and like this hyper independence, right? I think like as women slowly became like bigger in business, there was this like, boss babe like type of hustle that started to come out, and that's definitely starting to shift now. But a lot of us were taught like, I'll do it myself because I can't trust other people, right? Can't trust other people to do it properly, or I just can't trust people in general. Ancestral and generational kind of patterns definitely play into this because, again, a lot of us we see these things in society, especially now with like social media and all this kinds of stuff, right? So I think a lot of us are carrying these unresolved energies from the women that even came before us, right? Like, and the women who have kind of paved the way for us. And business culture as a whole very much rewards this like hustle, right? It doesn't really reward this like softness, or like if you're not, people almost think like, okay, if you're working all the time, and not that you're not working hard, but it's like, I just feel like sometimes it doesn't need to be hard all the time. But people kind of have this idea sometimes of like, oh, well, if I'm not working all the time, or people project onto us, if you're not working all the time, you're like scamming people, or, your business isn't real, or, it's whatever, it's a pyramid scheme, it's whatever, right? So there's all these projections that get put onto us, and these become our thoughts in our mind, right? Whether it's from our family, friends, society, right? Just business culture as a whole. These become our background thoughts. And I was definitely I still find myself truthfully caught in this cycle, and you kind of always will, but I think the piece is recognizing and it becoming less impactful for your business over time. I really found that I was very much tied to like productivity, and I still am at times. I see different parts of the pattern. I very much have adopted just in my life the new belief that rest doesn't mean bad things, and that like I don't need to feel guilty for resting. I don't need to feel guilty for taking the space and the time that I need, especially like I said, I'm a person who needs that kind of recovery time, and I'm typically with people a lot, so I need that chill time, I need that downtime. But I had to really rewire that and allow myself the space to rest, even when it felt uncomfortable, even though I really wanted it. And so that was something I really had to move through. Now I still am, working through some of that productivity. I am a person who like is always working on things and always wants to be learning new things. And so I do sometimes feel like I'm working all the time, right? And I'm overworking, and then I get stressed because I have so many things to do. And that's that fight or flight, or that fight mode of just like constantly feeling like I have to be running on this hamster wheel, right? For me, it does kind of show up in my mood. Again, it starts to impact like all areas of my life with my mood, right? Like I'll just be in a lower moody state, we'll say, where I'm kind of like just grumpy, right? Especially when I get really stressed. But it definitely happens way less often now, and I don't carry it with me as much. And I also know that when that starts to pop up, that's when I need the time and the space, right? So again, these patterns will pop up every so often. Now you might find your go-to is this fight response, but maybe you go into flight, maybe you go into fawn or freeze mode. So you might have different ones at different times. And again, we're always moving through them. But the reality is that we need to teach our body to feel safe. We need to teach our body that, like, when you're done from work or you're done from your job or whatever, your business, when you go home, you don't have to carry it with you. You're in your safe space. You get to relax. You get to, chill out. So it's just about not carrying these things with us and harboring these things and making, again, thoughts, beliefs, stories out of what we've been told, kind of, we'll say, growing up, right? So some of the signs, and maybe a little bit of like hidden signs that you might be experiencing if you're in this fight mode in your business. So one of them would be a hard time delegating. So this kind of goes back into that control piece where you don't want to delegate because that means you have to trust other people. You have to give, the project or whatever to this person. And what if they don't do a good job, right? Because if they don't do a good job, then you're going to have to fix it. And, you don't have control over what they do, all kinds of things, right? So, and even if you want to do less, because I have seen this in people where they say they want to do less, but then when the opportunity comes up to delegate, they come up with every reason in the book of why they can't delegate it to that person, right? Again, another, like, tying into that, another hidden sign is just needing to control the outcomes of things, right? So maybe you're obsessively checking your Instagram insights, right? Or like how many likes or subscribes or follows you've got. Maybe you're obsessively checking your income, like your banking, or even your, what do you call it? Like when people like buy your offers and stuff, right? Like refreshing that page. You could be rewriting everything. Like it has to be perfect. This perfectionism piece, right? That, it has to be perfect and then people will buy, which is totally not true because there's tons of people who make mistakes and have super successful businesses, and, there could be a typo on the sales page, right? Another hidden sign is that you easily get triggered by, slow growth or unmet expectations. So you just feel very irritated, like I'm not there yet, or why is this taking so long? And some of you, this might even force you to like kind of give up too. So again, there could be a self-sabotaging behavior kind of wrapped up in that as well. I mentioned this one before that I went through, like feeling like rest is dangerous or unproductive. So this is like having a hard time sitting and watching a movie because there's a pile of work, or taking a day of the week where you literally don't do work, right? You can kind of set this up a lot of different ways, but rest essentially is uncomfortable for you because you have to stop working and let go of a bit of control for that time being. Never feeling like you're done. So your to-do list is just constantly piling up and you just feel overwhelmed with all of the things that you have to do. And overall, just like a sense of tension in your body. Outside of business, I actually see this a lot in my in my osteopathic practice, where if you have tightness like all over your body, your nervous system is like on high alert, right? Because it's like you're always, essentially what it is like you're always clenching, you're always contracting and like waiting and preparing to like move, to go, right? To get into that fight. If you were truly relaxed, you could soften because you don't feel like you're under threat, right? Like you don't feel like, oh, I got to be prepared for the next thing, right? So if you have a lot of tension kind of all over your body, it's definitely tied to your nervous system. And it doesn't necessarily matter how many like massages you're going to get. It's probably not going to go away until you rectify your nervous system. And so that could definitely obviously show up for you in your business as well. Like just, kind of physical symptom of your business. So I would kind of encourage you to ask questions like, where in my business do I feel the urge or the need to control? Right? Where am I maybe not giving myself space or time, or where could I maybe delegate? Like, where are you kind of gripping a little bit too much? And another question you can ask yourself is, what am I afraid might happen if I slow down? So that might be a good one to you, or a good couple questions to ask yourself. Now, some ways that you can actually start to shift out of this fight mode, there's a lot of different ways. Grounding and as a whole is going to be very good for you. Like you can literally go outside and like touch grass. You can do grounding techniques. So there can be meditations, obviously, like grounding meditations. You can also do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding exercise, which basically like you stop where you are and you name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And so that's a way to kind of like bring you back to the present moment, especially if you're kind of in this like overwhelmed, anxious type of like scatterbrain kind of energy. You can also use breath work. A lot of this stuff, again, is getting present, bringing you back into your body and back into the current moment. You can, again, get out in nature, literally put your feet in the grass, get in the sunshine, feel the breeze on your face, right? You can even do the grounding exercise, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding practice outside in nature, which is really cool too. Any sort of really like embodiment somatic practices are going to be really supportive. Nervous system regulation. So again, any meditations, you could do vagus nerve work, breath work, going for a walk, stretching your body, exercising. You as someone who is dealing with like a fight response, really working to calm the body is going to be good, but you might find it the easiest doing it through moving your body. So stretching and walking will be really good because it's exercise, but it's slower. So it's not like a hard, heavy workout, because that's only going to ramp you up a bit more. So if we can kind of like teach the body it's okay, I can move, but I don't have to move at a fast pace. It just slows everything down a little bit. And rewriting your internal beliefs, right? Internal beliefs around the sense of needing control, internal beliefs around sense of safety in your business, feeling safe to pause, to rest, right? So really looking at those internal beliefs, and also just trusting that, you know, if you're a little bit more spiritual, trusting in that divine timing piece is probably something, like divine timing of your business is probably something you struggle with. And so work towards like co-creating with universe, God, source, whatever, instead of like forcefully pushing all the time. I find sometimes for me, it's like I have the best success when I've like taken a step back, you know, and it's not always anything major, but it's like maybe someone's booked an appointment, or, you know, maybe someone gives me a compliment, or maybe my piece of content does do really well, or whatever, right? Like it doesn't always have to be, I slowed down and I made like $30,000. Like it's not always like that. It can be, but it's not always like that, right? But it can just be that when you take a step back, it takes the pressure off of the business, right? And that's all of that is energy towards you and your business. So we need to start kind of normalizing how we feel, and realizing that this fight response is not signifying that we're broken or something wrong with us, or, you know, we're not cut out for business. It's really just a survival mechanism, and it's relearning how to be, or how to be present in your business. And maybe we do need to make some changes of how things are structured or supported for you. But it starts with re-regulating a little bit, creating that sense of safety, allowing yourself to come into more of a restful state periodically throughout the day, week, whatever, so that when you need to have the energy and need to be fired up to go take action on things, you can, but you're not burning yourself out while you're doing it, and you're not running yourself ragged and depleting yourself and becoming this reactive, controlling, we'll say, person, right? So when we can start to do this, it's going to open up more space for peace, for flow, for success in a way that feels good, right? That doesn't feel forceful or pushy. So that's pretty much what I got for today. Hopefully that resonates for you guys. I do have, if you're struggling with this and you want more support, I do have my Elevate Her coaching program, which is a 12-week container where you and me and a small group of women kind of get together. There's some one-on-one components as well as group components. And we really work to navigate and help you regulate your nervous system, help you work through the emotions, the beliefs, subconscious beliefs, all those things that are holding you back from feeling good in your life and your business, right? Because I truly believe we can have both. We don't need to sacrifice one for the other. If you're not sure if this is even a nervous system response that you have in your business, you can also take my free quiz, which actually will tell you which state you're in. And then I'm actually going to be tying these podcast episodes to each of them. But yeah, it'll tell you which one, if you're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it gives you an idea, it gives you some things of how it might be showing up for you, what it looks like, how it shows up in your body, and things you can start to do to kind of re-regulate and kind of come out of that space. So if you have any questions, feel free to DM me. Instagram is always an easy place where you can get a hold of me, as well as if you're on YouTube, feel free to post a little comment or whatever down below. And I will be doing, like I said, one of these on freeze, flight, and fawn. So there will be other episodes diving in specifically to those responses as well. So keep an eye out for those through the next episodes. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here as always. If there's any other topics or things that you guys are curious on or want a little bit more like detail on when it comes to business and nervous system stuff, definitely let me know. But otherwise, I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.